Hello and welcome. This is a OCR A2 F583 video. This is one of the last ones now. In this video I'm going to be going over income inequality. That's not necessarily just income inequality, that's just inequality. And then we're going to go on to wealth as well. I'm not going to go any further than that with this video. Purely because I didn't want to make the individual videos too long. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to start talking about is this thing about inequality. What exactly is it? Well, there's no point me writing this up because it's just words, and if you're interested you copy it down. I'm not going to go too fast, so don't worry about that. Okay, so inequality is essentially, in a definition, just the difference between the rich in society and the poor. And this is mainly in terms of incomes. So that's kind of why at the beginning I muddled them up a little bit. Okay, so that's just inequality. It's very simple. It's nothing too brash. And obviously, incomes are the flow of money from one person or source to another person or source, and there's many different ways that incomes can be generated, and I'll list a few for you. So they can be generated through the first one that most people think of, which is employment. So in a job you should get rewarded for offering up your labour. The other ones are maybe not as obvious, but they're fairly simple. Rent, so it's just the income that you would receive from renting your property, equipment, etc. You could go on about that one. The other one is kind of related to employment, enterprise. So generally, if setting up your own business, rewards, profits, you can count that as an income, really. Then the other two is interest from capital. So if you are, it kind of goes from rent really, interest from capital, that kind of thing. And then the final one is benefits from the state. Even though technically you're not working for them, you're not doing anything, you know, they are a source of income there, money flowing it into your bank account. Alright, so that's how incomes are generated. I was going to draw a line under that, but obviously the next thing we're going to talk a bit more about incomes. Now, I mentioned at the start of this video, only a minute ago, I talked about the inequality, which is the difference between the rich in society and the poor in society. And generally, there's a good Green Day song about it, 99 Revolutions, which says, you know, all the wealth of 99% is the same as the wealth of the richest 1%, which is actually true, so I thought I'd bring it up. It's a good song anyway, by the way. If you are interested, not that I'm being paid to, that's, you know, like it. Anyway, so what I'm saying is inequality is a distribution of income between the rich and the poor. Now, how is that income distributed? Well, there are many different ways, obviously, in which it's distributed, and you need to know about all of them. The first one is probably the most obvious. I'll list this, so distribution. The first one is skills. So obviously if you are more skilled, your skills are going to be in high demand, you're going to be more inelastic in demand. So if you were to draw a wage equilibrium, it obviously looks something like, I was going to say, if I go at drawing this now, it's a very steep and then a very flat supply curve. Okay, so you'd have a very high wage, and you'd be similarly in quite high demand as well. Okay, sorry, so that's just a kind of, it's a crude drawing, but you get the idea. So obviously skills are one. Alright, another one is income tax. Now this is mainly, you mainly think of this as progressive income tax. So if there is reduced progressive income tax, then the wealth is more spread. So that's why you hear governments going, oh, we're going to introduce a stronger, more progressive tax system in the UK or whatever country it's talking about, because one of their main goals, if we remember, is to have a fair and equal distribution of income. And having a progressive income tax helps to reduce the distribution of income, hence it's one of the factors that affect the distribution of income. One kind of goes on from skills, says kinds of, it's the skills that are in demand. Now there's skills that are, just skills generally high paid, but it's whether also you have to consider, well, are they the skills that are actually in demand? Because you might have the skills or something, but if it's not in demand, then could be paid a very high wage. So demand pattern for skills. Okay. I guess this kind of goes on from income. It's government policy. So it's very similar to progressive income tax. So it's generally what happens. Sorry, it's income tax. It generally what the government says. Okay, government policy may be sort of public sectors as well. That's mainly what government policy affects. So it's how much is being paid to work in the public sector. So if you want to relate it to that, you can do. So they're the main ones really. Okay, so that's incomes and the distribution. So we've covered inequality, which is the the difference between rich and poor in terms of income, and the distribution. That's dictated by the skills and whether the skills are in demand. The income tax, so progressive income tax, or the opposite, which obviously the standard income level, or government policy, which is, as I said, mainly affects kind of public sector workers. If you wanted to talk about that in a paragraph, Wade already talks about income tax. Okay, so that's income. Now we're going to talk about wealth. Now, what is the difference between income and wealth? I mean, they are related because wealth sounds like someone who's got a lot of money, and someone who's got a lot of money is generally on a high income. Well, to put your prejudices to that aside, that is true. However, someone could be very wealthy but have no or little any income at all. And you ask me, how does that happen? Well, wealth is not just defined in financial assets. It's also defined in, well, okay, give it away here. It's not just defined in financial terms, it's also defined in the terms of assets. So if you have a £2 million house but you have a £10 income, I mean, you won't be paying a good mortgage towards that. But what I'm saying is, if you've already paid off the mortgage for the house, then all your financial is put into the capital of that house, and that is what we call an asset. And the key thing to differentiate the two between is it's very harder. It's very more difficult, as we'll go on to discuss, to distribute the wealth of an asset as opposed to income, because income, obviously, we've got all these income taxes, in terms of progressive tax, etc. And we've got the government policy, and we've got the change in skills. It's very easy to change the demand for skills. It's very easy to change the rate of income tax, but it's very hard to split up the wealth of someone's mansion. You can't go, right, okay, you've got over £2 million wealth in terms of your assets. I'm going to cut off your house away and give it to the poor. Well, apart from the fact that people would see you going to the bath, there's going to be a few issues with that. Okay, so anyway, I've already talked a little bit about it. So wealth, as I said, it's not just, it is measured in financial aspects, so in terms of your bank accounts, for example. So that's one of the ways that you measure it. And the key thing with, so say you put assets and maybe financial accounts, so bank accounts really. Sorry, I do apologise. And the key thing with wealth, the difference between wealth and income, apart from what it actually is wealth is very much an inherited factor. So you generally won't just go out and buy a £2 million mansion. You would generally have inherited it from years, centuries ago. You might have inherited it from them. You wouldn't necessarily just go out and buy a £2 million mansion when you're 17 unless your YouTube channel takes off. But not to put any pressure on anyone. Anyway, so what I'm saying is it's generally inherited. But you say, oh well, at some point then it must have been bought. Well, correct, but you know, but just it will have been inherited. You can't really inherit an income. You can't, you know, to some extent you can, but you really can't just go out and say, oh, I've just inherited this job that I didn't have before, because why would someone just do that? So that's really a key thing to remember about wealth, is mainly inherited. And it kind of goes on what I've gone off before. It's very hard to distribute. So it's difficult to distribute wealth. I mean, as I said, you know, you could increase interest rates, which would increase the mortgage repayment, so to some extent you could. But again, that's coming from some kind of income, so maybe not. Okay. Now, what I was talking about before is the asset prices. I'm not sure if I mentioned it before, but asset prices increase faster than incomes. Than incomes increase. Okay, that's a key thing to point out, because a value of a house, obviously depending on the housing market, but generally it will increase faster than someone's income. Unless they're getting promoted to a senior job every 5 months, then asset prices will generally increase a lot faster. Okay, so that's really two assumptions that we've made for wealth. That one is it's generally inherited. Two, the asset prices increase faster than incomes. I mean, I get incomes increase with a line of inflation, and generally that's what we're talking about when we talk about this scenario. Okay, so that's kind of really it for this video. Such as anything else. Yeah, so I talked about the assets being in terms of your homes, your share, in your homes or your bank accounts. You could also talk about it in shares in businesses, or deposits. Yeah, or shares in businesses or deposits. Shares. You might be sharing a business, and that's considered part of your wealth. Okay, so obviously, you know, it's very hard to distribute wealth, but so therefore, it's generally, if there's something we can do about it, the general consensus is that it will, there'll be a high level of wealth inequality. You know, that's obvious if you look across the depth that is Britain. Okay, so what actually causes the wealth, the wealth to be so different? What causes this wealth inequality? Well, obviously, you kind of say, okay, well, you use income to buy an asset. So obviously, you know, difference in incomes is one, even though, as I said, incomes and wealth are different things. But you can use income to buy wealth. So different incomes. Okay. And another one, kind of related, difference in entrepreneurial skills, which, you know, can link to a different income, but something else to put down. Different entrepreneurial skills. So some people might not have the ideas for a business, and some might. Okay. And obviously, we said it's mainly inherited. So, you know, a key thing really, probably the one that I should have mentioned first, was the level of inherited wealth. Sorry about my crude writing. And another one that might not be so obvious is the marriage patterns of the wealthy. Unless you are in the Romeo and Juliet kind of world, I know it's a bit old now, but generally the marriage patterns of the wealthy, the wealthy will marry the wealthy, they won't marry someone poor, so that's my dreams out the window. But I'm not, you know. So anyway, marriage patterns of the wealthy. You could put the poor as well. The poor, but again, you know, the wealthy is not really going to marry someone poor, really. Okay, so marriage patterns of the wealthy is one. So these are the 4 things that cause distribution, that cause the wealth inequality, which are managed patterns of the wealthy, different incomes, different entrepreneurial skills, different level of inherited wealth. The first 2 that are kind of the same. Different incomes and different entrepreneurial skills kind of relate to the same thing, but different income says a bit more, because you might not necessarily have to set up a business to be a millionaire, although it is a good way to start. Okay, so that's really it for this video, because I didn't want to go too much in depth, as I just wanted a nice little 10-minute video, as opposed to the 15-minute videos I've been doing, because I've been trying to concise the latter part of F583 labour side into a few videos, and obviously that's quite hard to do straight away. Alright, so just to recap what we've done in this video, we've talked about inequality, incomes and wealth. We said inequality was the difference between the rich and the poor, and this is mainly in terms of income. And we went on to talk about incomes. Well, income is obviously the flow of money which is generated from rent, lending your land, employment, enterprise, interest from capital, or benefits from the state. The distribution is dependent on the skills that you have, and also if them skills are in demand or not. The income tax, so the way the government set out the income tax, is it progressive or is it one level for everyone and that's it? Government policy, which kind of relates to the same thing, but we said before about whatever we said before. My mind's just gone blank. The wealth, well, we talked about that's mainly an inherited factor. You can't really just go out and buy a £2 million mansion unless you've got a large income. And generally, asset prices will increase faster than the increase in incomes, which is generally a bit more than inflation, the level of inflation as a minimum. Wealth obviously can be defined as assets, financial accounts or shares in businesses. Now we said it's kind of obvious, but it's quite hard to distribute the wealth of someone's mansion among other people. And the main causes for such a large wealth inequality is different incomes, obviously due to different skills. You could say, you could pick one of these for actually could be a factor of wealth inequality. Different entrepreneurial skills, we kind of said that it's quite similar to having a different income, because obviously if you can start up a business then you're more likely to be successful. Inherited level of wealth. Now, depends what kind of family you're from, but that's quite self-explanatory. Marriage patterns of the wealthy. So as I said, the wealthy will generally marry the wealthy, and that's the key thing to take away from this video. Well, apart from the actual other economic stuff, I might have crushed some dreams out there, but I do apologise. It's just economics. Okay, so thanks for watching. Hopefully it's been quite a nice video. Try not to make it too long, include too many things. The next one we're going to go on to look at in the next video is we're going to look at the topic of poverty. I'll be going over quite a big thing in that video of the Gini coefficient and the Lorenz curve, and there's a key reason why they're spoken about together. And also because that kind of talks about poverty, that kind of talks about the distribution of wealth, which I could have included in this video, but we're already on 16 minutes, and that would have been another 10 easily. And I think that is quite related to what we call absolute and relative poverty. And then in that video, the next video is going to be quite big, because I'm going to talk about the ways that we measure poverty, and the problems it causes, the actual causes of poverty, how we can solve it. So it's quite a big one, that next video. And then in the final video, I'm going to talk about migration, and that is mainly in terms of the labour force being migrated and how that affects it, because weirdly enough, this is the labour side of F583. So anyway, thanks for watching, and hopefully it's been of some use, and we'll see you in the next video.